I discovered my father's hidden life and the dangerous secret he left behind. Reddit stories. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Anna first noticed something unusual. The sun had barely risen over the horizon, casting soft golden rays into her modest kitchen. The house smelled of fresh coffee and the remnants of yesterday's dinner, a simple affair that her mother, Marie, had prepared with the same care she always put into their meals. Anna, now in her late 20s, had long since left her childhood home, but every weekend, without fail, she found herself here. Back in her childhood bedroom, slipping into the comfort of routine. It was something she had come to cherish, a connection to the past that seemed to be slipping away faster than she could hold on. But today was different. Today, the stillness felt heavy, as though there were something hidden in the air, something that was about to break free, and Anna could feel it in her bones. She sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in front of her, trying to make sense of the overwhelming unease gnawing at her. Her mother was at the sink, humming to herself as she washed the dishes from breakfast, the rhythmic sound of water cascading over porcelain filling the room. It was a peaceful scene, but it was one Anna had witnessed countless times before. Yet today, it felt wrong. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Anna's voice was soft, hesitant. Marie glanced over her shoulder, her smile warm but tired. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" Anna bit her lip, unsure how to phrase the question that had been lingering in her thoughts for days. Her mother had always been open with her, but there was an underlying sense of guardedness in her demeanor lately, a subtle shift that Anna couldn't quite put her finger on. "Have you ever thought about Dad? About what happened with him?" Anna's voice cracked slightly, betraying the emotion that she had tried to keep buried for so long. Marie paused mid-motion, her hands frozen in place as though the question had caught her off guard. There was a brief, almost imperceptible flicker of something. Regret, perhaps, in her eyes before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "Your father, he was a good man, Anna," she said, her tone unwavering. "But life moves on, and so must we." Anna nodded, though she wasn't entirely convinced. There was something unspoken between them, a wall that had slowly been built over the years, a wall Anna had never been able to scale. Her father, Thomas, had disappeared when she was just a child. No warning, no explanation. He had simply vanished, leaving behind a shattered family. For years, Marie had done her best to raise Anna alone, though Anna could sense the weight of the loss in her mother's every movement. In the quiet way she would glance at old photographs, her expression clouded with memories of a man who was once her everything. "I just don't understand why he left," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper. "I mean, what happened?" Marie set the dish down, her hands trembling ever so slightly. "Anna, it's complicated," she said, her gaze dropping to the floor. "There are things you don't understand, things I can't explain." But Anna felt a pang of frustration in her chest. She had spent her entire life wondering why her father had abandoned them, why the man who had once been so present in their lives had disappeared without a trace. But her mother had never offered answers, always deflecting with vague reassurances that time would heal the wounds. But time had only deepened the questions. "Mom, please," Anna pleaded, leaning forward in her seat. "I'm not a child anymore. I deserve to know what happened. I deserve to know the truth." But Marie sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of years of secrets had finally caught up with her. For a long moment, she remained silent, her hands resting on the edge of the sink, her eyes staring at the water running beneath the faucet. Anna could see her mother's struggle, the inner battle between revealing something she had long kept hidden and protecting her daughter from a truth that might be too painful to bear. "Anna," Marie began, her voice quiet but firm, "your father didn't leave us because he wanted to. He left because he had to. There are things you wouldn't understand, and it's better that way." Anna's heart skipped a beat, a strange sense of urgency filling the room. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Marie closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering strength. Your father, he wasn't just a man, Anna. He had a past. A life before us. A life that, for reasons I can't explain, he had to sever. For his own safety, for ours. I'm sorry, but it's something I swore to protect you from. I thought it was best to let the past stay buried. Anna's mind raced, 1,000 questions flooding her thoughts, none of them making any sense. Safety. Severing ties. What was her mother talking about? What kind of life had Thomas led before they had met? But why didn't you tell me sooner? Anna asked, her voice rising with a mixture of anger and confusion. Why keep me in the dark all these years? I didn't want to ruin your life, Anna, Marie said, her voice barely audible now, as if the words themselves were a heavy burden she could no longer carry. I wanted you to have a normal life, to be free of the shadows that haunted us, to grow up without the weight of a past you never asked for. Anna's mind reeled as the pieces of her childhood began to fall into place, like fragments of a puzzle she had never known existed. Her father had always been a mystery, a shadow that loomed over her family, a figure who was never truly gone but never fully present either. His absence had always left an emptiness in her heart, but now, she realized, it wasn't just an absence. It was a void filled with secrets, with things her mother had never spoken of, things she had never been allowed to know. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. So, what now? What am I supposed to do with this? With all these questions? When Marie stood as well, slowly, her face etched with exhaustion. You can't change the past, Anna. You can't undo what's been done. All you can do is live the life you have now. Anna's chest tightened, the weight of her mother's words pressing down on her. She wanted answers, but all she had were more questions, each one more tangled than the last. I don't know if I can just forget about this, Mom, Anna whispered, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can live with the fact that everything I thought I knew about our family was a lie. Marie's eyes softened, and for the first time in what felt like years, she stepped toward Anna, reaching out as though to offer comfort. I never wanted to hurt you, Anna. But sometimes, protecting you meant keeping the truth from you. Anna's mind was a whirl of emotions. Anger, confusion, disbelief. But underneath it all, there was a growing sense of something else. A need to uncover the truth, to dig deeper into the mystery of her father's disappearance, even if it meant unearthing things she wasn't ready to hear. The quiet, normal life she had always known was no longer enough. There were too many unanswered questions, too many secrets buried beneath the surface. And as she looked at her mother, standing there with her tired eyes and wary expression, Anna realized that the real journey had only just begun. The journey to uncover the hidden bond that connected her family, the bond that had been buried in silence for far too long, and she would stop at nothing to find it. The days that followed that fateful conversation between Anna and her mother were anything but ordinary. The house, which had always been a sanctuary, now felt suffocating. It was as though a door had been cracked open, letting in a cold breeze, the kind that reminded Anna that nothing in her life had ever been as simple as she had believed. Every time she walked through the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mother was hiding something. Something vital, something that Anna had yet to uncover. She tried to push it from her mind, tried to go about her routine, but the question of her father's disappearance gnawed at her relentlessly. The mysterious words her mother had spoken lingered in her thoughts, echoing in her head. For his own safety, for ours? What did that mean? Who was her father, really? What had he been involved in before Anna was born? The unease grew, and Anna found herself becoming consumed with the need for answers. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she couldn't simply let it go. Her mother, with all her quiet strength and dedication, had never once allowed Anna to question their past. But now, Anna was at the precipice of something she couldn't ignore. One evening, after dinner, she sat in her bedroom, the faint glow of the lamp casting long shadows on the walls. Her phone sat in front of her, a tool she had used countless times for trivial matters, but tonight, it would serve a greater purpose. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she typed out a message to her childhood friend, Emma. They hadn't spoken much in recent years, but Anna knew that Emma still lived in the same neighborhood, just a few blocks away. And more importantly, Emma's father had been a close friend of her father's. Anna hesitated for a moment before pressing send. She had never directly questioned Emma about her father, never asked what he knew, but this was different. There was a part of Anna that hoped Emma might have answers, even though she knew it was risky. After all, what if Emma had been kept in the dark too? What if she knew nothing at all? And yet, that voice in her head pushed her forward, urging her to uncover whatever truth was out there. The message was simple. Hey, Emma. I know it's been a while, but I was wondering if we could catch up soon. There's something I've been meaning to ask you about my dad. Something I can't stop thinking about. Let me know when you're free. She stared at the message for a few seconds before hitting send, the weight of it settling in her chest. She felt vulnerable, exposed, as though by sending that message, she had crossed an invisible line. It was no longer just a question in her mind. It was real now, something tangible, something she would have to confront. The reply came hours later, just as Anna was about to go to bed. She could barely make out the words in the dim light of her phone's screen, but they were enough to send a shiver down her spine. I've been waiting for you to ask. I'll meet you tomorrow. There's a lot I need to tell you. The next day, Anna met Emma at a small cafe near their old school. It had been years since they had shared a cup of coffee and chatted about life. The last time they had spoken, they had been teenagers, full of hope and dreams, not the adults they were now. But there was something about Emma's tone in that message, something that suggested she had been waiting for this moment too. As soon as Anna entered the cafe, she spotted Emma at a corner table, her familiar face framed by long, dark hair. She waved Anna over, and there was a brief moment of warmth between them, a reminder of their shared history. But as Anna sat down, she could sense the change in the air. Emma wasn't smiling like she used to. Her expression was serious, almost solemn. What's going on, Anna? Emma asked, her voice low. You said you wanted to ask about your dad. Anna hesitated for a moment, the words threatening to get stuck in her throat. How could she even begin to explain? How could she put into words the whirlwind of emotions and questions that had been swirling in her head for weeks? Do you know why he left? Anna finally blurted out, her voice shaking. What? Why my dad disappeared? Emma's eyes flickered with something Anna couldn't quite read. It wasn't surprise or shock, but something darker, more knowing. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest. I wasn't sure if you'd ever ask me about this, Emma said quietly. I wasn't sure if you were ready to know. Anna's heart raced. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Emma took a deep breath, her gaze distant as if she was revisiting memories long buried. Your dad? He wasn't just a man working a regular job, Anna. He was involved in something much bigger, something that had nothing to do with his life with your mom. I didn't know all the details, but I knew he was working with some dangerous people. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Dangerous people? What are you talking about? Was he involved in some kind of crime? Emma shook her head. Not exactly, but it was dangerous. The kind of thing that can ruin lives. And when I say he left, I mean he had no choice. He had to disappear. It wasn't just about protecting himself. He was trying to protect your mom and you. Anna leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if holding on for support. So he didn't just abandon us. He didn't just leave because he wanted to. Emma's eyes softened. No, Anna, it wasn't like that. He was forced into a position where he had to make a choice. And it was better for you and your mom to never know the truth. He couldn't take that risk. Anna's mind was spinning, trying to process the weight of Emma's words. Her father had been a part of something dark, something dangerous, something he had never mentioned. It was impossible to understand, impossible to believe. But there was no denying the sincerity in Emma's voice. She wasn't lying. "Do you know who he was working with? What he was involved in?" Anna asked, her voice trembling with urgency. Emma shook her head again, this time with more regret. "I don't know everything, Anna. But I know it was serious, and I know it wasn't something he could get out of easily. The last time I saw him, he was different. There was fear in his eyes. Fear for his own safety, but also for you and your mom. He wasn't just trying to run from whatever he was involved in. He was trying to keep you both safe, even if it meant disappearing." The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place, but they only created a bigger mystery. Anna felt as though she had stumbled into a web of secrets that had been carefully spun around her, a web that she couldn't escape. Her father's disappearance, her mother's silence, Emma's cryptic words. It was all connected, but to what? "I need to know more," Anna said, her voice filled with determination. "I need to find him. I need to understand what happened." Emma looked at her with a mixture of sadness and warning. "I don't think you're ready for that, Anna. The past. It's not something you can just dig up and expect to walk away from. There are things in your father's past that are better left buried." But Anna wasn't listening. She couldn't stop now. She needed to know the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. "I have to try," Anna whispered. "I have to know what happened." Anna's obsession with finding the truth had only grown stronger since that day in the cafe with Emma. She couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything else. The questions that had been swirling in her mind now demanded answers, and nothing would stop her from uncovering what had been buried for so long. Her father's past was a shadow that had loomed over her life, and she was determined to bring it into the light, no matter how painful the process might be. The next few days were a blur of research and phone calls. Anna scoured old records, hoping to find something, anything, that might shed light on her father's life before he met her mother. She reached out to anyone who might have known him, including distant relatives and old acquaintances, but each conversation left her with more confusion than clarity. The further she dug, the more she realized how little she truly knew about the man she had once called her father. Her mother, of course, had been no help. Despite her initial confession, Marie had quickly retreated into her silence, refusing to offer any more details. It was as if she had shut herself off from the world, leaving Anna to fend for herself in her search for answers. Anna couldn't understand why her mother, of all people, had chosen to protect her from the truth. If the past was so dangerous, why hadn't she warned Anna sooner? Why hadn't she trusted her enough to share the burden of their family's secrets? One evening, after yet another frustrating day of dead ends, Anna sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of papers in front of her. She had gotten nowhere. She had no leads, no solid information. She felt like she was chasing ghosts, constantly circling back to the same empty places, unable to make any real progress. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the silence. It was a message from Emma. "Huh? I think I know someone who can help. Someone who knew your dad. I'm not sure if it's safe for you to meet him, but if you really want to find the truth, he's your best chance. Meet me at the old warehouse on Maple Street tonight. I'll explain everything when you get there." Anna's heart raced. The old warehouse on Maple Street. She had heard about it before. A derelict, abandoned building that no one dared go near. It was the kind of place that only existed in whispers and rumors. The thought of going there filled her with dread, but at the same time, it was the first real lead she had received in weeks. She didn't hesitate. Grabbing her coat and slipping her phone into her pocket, Anna left the house. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as she made her way through the empty streets. The city was quiet at this hour, and the cold night air did little to ease the growing tension in her chest. She kept wondering if she was making a mistake. What if Emma was wrong? What if this was a trap? But deep down, Anna knew she had no other choice. She had to follow this lead. She had to find the answers. The warehouse loomed ahead, its silhouette casting a dark shadow against the dim streetlights. It was just as she had imagined. Cracked windows, rusted metal, and the faint scent of decay in the air. Anna's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped closer, every creak of the old wood beneath her feet sending a jolt of anxiety through her. Emma was waiting by the entrance, her figure barely visible in the dim light. When Anna approached, she gave a small, almost nervous wave. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," Emma said quietly. "I had to be certain you were ready." Anna didn't respond. She was too focused on what lay ahead. "Who are we meeting here, Emma?" Anna asked, her voice tense. Emma glanced around nervously, as if making sure no one was watching. "His name is Marcus. He was your dad's associate. He's the one who knows the truth." Bah, Anna's mind raced. An associate? What kind of person had her father been involved with? Was this someone who could finally give her the answers she had been searching for? Emma led Anna through the dilapidated building, her footsteps echoing in the hollow space. The warehouse was even more unsettling up close. It smelled of mildew, and the air was thick with dust. Anna's breath felt shallow as she followed Emma down a narrow corridor, her mind reeling with the possibilities. Finally, they reached a small room at the back of the building. It was dimly lit with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows on the cracked walls. In the corner of the room, a man was sitting at a table, his face obscured by the darkness. His features were hard to make out, but the air around him felt heavy, dangerous. "This is Marcus," Emma said softly, stepping aside to allow Anna to approach. The man didn't move. He just sat there, staring into the shadows, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Anna hesitated, unsure of what to expect. There was something unsettling about him, something that made her skin crawl. But she had come this far. She had to know the truth. "Marcus," Anna said, her voice trembling, "I need to know what happened to my father. Why did he disappear? What was he involved in?" For a long moment, Marcus didn't answer. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, slowly, he stood up, his movements deliberate and measured. His face was still shrouded in darkness, but Anna could feel his presence, as though he were a force of nature, unyielding and implacable. "He was a part of something much bigger than you can imagine," Marcus said, his voice gravelly and low. "Your father didn't just disappear, Anna. He was taken. And the reason for that is tied to the very thing he was trying to protect you from." Anna's pulse quickened. Taken? By who? Marcus turned his head slightly, just enough for Anna to catch a glimpse of his eyes. They were cold, calculating. "By people who don't let go, people who don't forgive. Your father wasn't just a man caught up in a bad situation. He was a key player in a much larger game. He knew too much. And in the end, that was his downfall." Anna's mind reeled as she tried to piece together the fragments of information. What game? What was he involved in? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He walked to the corner of the room, his shadow stretching across the floor as he reached into a bag. When he turned back to Anna, he held something in his hand. An old, worn folder. He placed it on the table in front of her. "This," Marcus said, "contains everything you need to know. Your father's role, the people he was working with, and why he had to leave. But be warned, Anna, some truths are better left buried." Anna stared at the folder, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of it, the significance of what it held. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. But as she reached for the folder, a voice in the back of her mind warned her to stop. Once she opened this, there would be no turning back. The truth would come crashing down around her, and she wasn't sure she was ready to face it. But it was too late. Her fingers closed around the folder, and with a deep breath, she pulled it open. Inside, there were photographs. Grainy black and white images of her father, younger and smiling, standing alongside unfamiliar faces. But it wasn't just the photographs that caught Anna's attention. There were papers too. Documents filled with cryptic codes, addresses, and names she didn't recognize. She flipped through the pages quickly, her mind racing, her stomach tightening as the realization hit her. Her father had been involved in something much darker than she had ever imagined. And now, she was in deeper than she could have ever anticipated. The dim glow of the warehouse's solitary light bulb seemed to flicker ominously as Anna flipped through the contents of the folder. Each page was a revelation, a clue that drew her further into the enigma of her father's past. The photographs were the most unsettling. They depicted Thomas not as the loving father she remembered, but as a man who had been caught up in something far darker. His expressions were serious, even tense, standing next to men and women who seemed equally grim. The addresses and names scribbled on the pages were a foreign language to Anna. But there was one thing she understood. These people were connected, and they were not the kind of people anyone should cross. Who are they? Anna whispered, more to herself than to Marcus. Marcus, who had been watching her quietly from the corner of the room, finally spoke, his voice low and unfeeling. They're part of a network, Anna. A criminal organization that's been operating for years. Your father got involved with them when he was younger, thinking he could make some quick money. But he didn't realize what he was getting himself into. By the time he did, it was too late. Anna's pulse quickened as she took in his words. Her father, caught up in something illegal, something dangerous, had been more than just a victim. He had been an active participant, someone who had chosen to dive into the murky world of crime. But why? What had driven him to make such a decision? And more importantly, why had he chosen to leave her and her mother behind without so much as a word of explanation? Marcus continued, his voice tinged with regret. When your father found out how deep he was in, he tried to get out. But it's not that simple. Once you're in for life. The people he was working with don't let go easily. They don't care who you are or what you've done. They only care about power. Anna felt a knot tighten in her stomach. So, he tried to leave, and they took him. Just like that. Marcus nodded, his expression hardening. They didn't just take him. They made sure he couldn't talk. They made sure no one would come looking for him. That's why he disappeared. They forced him into hiding. And anyone who tried to help him, they were just as expendable. Her mind was racing. And my mother. Why didn't she ever tell me any of this? She didn't want you to know. She thought it would be better to protect you from the truth. She never wanted you to find out what kind of man your father had really been. She wanted you to remember him as the man who loved you, who provided for you. Not the man who got himself tangled in something he couldn't get out of. Anna's head was spinning. She felt betrayed by the secrecy that had surrounded her entire life. All the time spent wondering why her father had disappeared. Why her mother had refused to talk about it. Now seemed like a cruel game. A game where Anna had been the pawn, kept in the dark for her own supposed protection. I need to find him, Anna said, her voice filled with determination. I need to know where he is. I need to see him for myself. Marcus's face softened for a moment, but only for a second. You don't get it, Anna? It's not that simple. If you try to find him, you'll put yourself in danger. These people don't just disappear, they cover their tracks. And anyone who tries to find out too much, they'll come after you. I don't care, Anna shot back, her voice sharp. I can't just let him disappear like this. I need to know the truth. I need closure. Marcus looked at her with a mixture of pity and wariness. You're asking for trouble. But if you're really set on this, I can help. I can get you the information you need. But you have to be prepared for what you're going to find. There's a reason your father disappeared. It wasn't just because of some random mistake. The people he was involved with, they're ruthless. Though Anna didn't hesitate. I'm ready. Marcus stood up from his chair, and moved toward a small filing cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened it slowly, as though weighing his next move. He pulled out a thick envelope and handed it to Anna, his fingers brushing against hers as he did. "This has everything you need to know. Addresses, contacts, information on the people who were involved with your father. But you need to be careful. You can't trust anyone." Anna's heart pounded as she accepted the envelope. She could feel the weight of it, both physically and metaphorically. The truth she had sought for so long was now within her reach. But with it came a new reality, a dangerous reality. She wasn't just chasing a lost memory anymore. She was walking into a world she couldn't fully understand, and there was no turning back. "Thank you," Anna whispered, though her voice was shaky. "I won't forget this." Marcus nodded grimly. "Just be smart. If you need help, don't hesitate to call. But remember, once you start this, there's no going back." Anna didn't answer. She wasn't sure what to say. The gravity of the situation settled over her, a cold weight pressing down on her chest. She had wanted answers, but now that she had them, she wasn't sure she was ready to face the consequences. As Anna left the warehouse, she felt the cool night air hit her face, but it did little to calm her nerves. She had the envelope clutched tightly in her hands, and her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had known this would be dangerous, but now it felt real. The people her father had been involved with were out there, and they were watching. She could feel their presence, even though they were nowhere to be seen. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was being hunted, that the world her father had hidden from her was closing in. Anna walked through the empty streets, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the silence. She knew she had a choice to make. She could walk away now, forget everything, leave it all behind. But deep down, she knew she couldn't. The unanswered questions, the unresolved pain, the need to know who her father really was. It was all too much to ignore. She had to see this through, no matter the cost. When she finally returned home, the house felt strangely empty. Her mother was still asleep, the quiet hum of the house the only sound that greeted her. Anna stood in the doorway of her childhood bedroom, staring at the envelope in her hands. It seemed so small, so inconsequential compared to the weight of what it contained. But she knew that inside those pages lay the answers she had been searching for. The truth about her father, the truth about her family, was finally within reach. But as she opened the envelope and began to sift through its contents, a shiver ran down her spine. The deeper she looked, the more she realized. The truth she had been seeking was far darker than she had ever imagined. The people her father had been involved with, the things he had done. They were not just dangerous. They were something else entirely, and Anna had just walked straight into their world. Anna sat alone in her bedroom, the weight of the envelope heavy in her hands. The pages inside, now partially unfolded, had revealed enough to make her head spin. She had expected some truth, some explanation that would bring clarity to her father's disappearance. But what she found was far darker, far more sinister than anything she could have imagined. As the clock ticked away, its rhythmic ticking seemed to mock her, pulling her further into the abyss of her discovery. She stared at the documents in front of her. Names, addresses, cryptic messages, and photographs of her father with people whose faces were unfamiliar, but whose expressions were unmistakable, cold, calculating, and ruthless. It was all there, every detail she needed to know, every piece of the puzzle she had been so desperately trying to complete. Her father had been involved with a secretive criminal organization, but this wasn't just any group. This was a powerful network that operated across borders, dealing in arms, drugs, and information. An operation so vast and so hidden that the authorities had been powerless to dismantle it. She skimmed through a few more pages. One name caught her eye, a man who appeared in several photographs alongside her father. His face was sharp, his eyes cold, and he was always standing slightly in the shadows as though trying to avoid the camera's gaze. His name was Viktor Malikov, and according to the documents, he was one of the highest, ranking members of the organization. The more Anna read, the clearer it became that Viktor Malikov wasn't just another associate. He was her father's handler. He had been the one pulling the strings, the one who had kept Thomas in line, and perhaps the one who had forced him to leave. Anna's breath quickened as she read on. The more she discovered about the inner workings of the organization, the more she realized the dangerous depths her father had been willing to plunge into. He hadn't just been a pawn in a larger game. He had been a player, and then he had tried to escape. But trying to escape meant making a choice: leave everything behind, or face the consequences. Her father had chosen to protect his family, and in doing so, he had disappeared, gone underground to sever all ties. But the people he had been involved with didn't just let him slip away. They had hunted him down, and the fact that he had been kept hidden for all these years meant that Anna's father was either dead or living in constant fear of retribution. The fear crept into Anna's chest like a cold hand tightening its grip. She had thought she wanted the truth. She had thought knowing the reality of her father's life would bring her some form of closure. But now, with the weight of that truth crashing down on her, she wasn't so sure anymore. Suddenly, a sound broke her from her thoughts, the creaking of the floorboards outside her room. Her heart stopped for a moment, a jolt of panic racing through her veins. She quickly shoved the envelope under the bed, her breath shallow as she listened. The door creaked open slowly, and her mother stepped inside. Marie's face was drawn, tired, as if the burden of years of secrets had finally taken its toll. She paused at the threshold, looking at Anna with something akin to regret in her eyes. For a moment, there was silence between them, a tension that neither of them seemed willing to break. "I know what you're doing," Marie said, her voice barely above a whisper. Anna didn't respond. She couldn't. The anger, the betrayal, the frustration, everything she had been holding back now threatened to spill over. She had spent her whole life trusting her mother, believing in the love and protection she had always provided. But now, all of that felt like a lie. "You can't fix this, Anna," Marie continued, her voice shaking. "I tried to protect you. I tried to keep you safe. You don't know what's out there. You don't understand what your father was involved in. Then explain it to me." Anna's voice cracked, her patience finally breaking. "All these years, you've kept me in the dark. All these years, you've lied to me. I deserve to know the truth." Mary took a step forward, her hands trembling as she reached for Anna's arm. "I didn't lie to you. I protected you. You don't understand what it's like to live with that kind of fear. I wanted to spare you from it. I didn't want you to end up like your father, caught in something you couldn't get out of." Anna pulled away from her mother, the frustration building inside her until it felt like it was going to spill over. "I'm not a child anymore, Mom. I have a right to know, and I'm going to find out, whether you help me or not." Her mother's face crumpled, the years of pain and sacrifice apparent in her eyes. "Please, Anna, don't go any further. There are things you don't want to know. There are people, dangerous people, who won't hesitate to hurt you. They will hurt anyone who gets in their way. Your father knew that, and that's why he left." Anna felt a flicker of doubt, but she pushed it down. "I have to know. I have to understand why everything happened the way it did. I can't live with this uncertainty anymore." Her mother's voice trembled with fear. "You think this is about your father? It's about you, Anna. It's about your safety. They'll come for you. They'll make sure you pay for what you're doing. They won't stop until they get what they want." But Anna stared at her mother, seeing the fear in her eyes. It was the same fear that had always been there, the one she had never been able to name, but that she now understood all too well. Her mother wasn't just scared for her father, she was scared for Anna herself, and that fear was justified. Just then, Anna's phone buzzed on the bed, breaking the silence. She reached for it instinctively, seeing that the message was from Emma. "You need to leave. Now." They know you're looking. They're coming for you." Anna's heart dropped into her stomach. "Who's coming for me?" She typed, her fingers trembling. The reply was immediate. "The ones your father tried to escape from. The ones he worked for. They know what you found. You need to disappear." Now, Anna's blood ran cold. She had been warned, but she hadn't taken it seriously. She had been so focused on uncovering the truth that she hadn't considered the consequences, the real, dangerous consequences. Now, it was too late. Her mother's voice broke through her panic. "Anna, listen to me. You have to go. They'll be here any minute. You can't stay here. It's not safe." Anna's mind raced. She had to leave, but where would she go? She couldn't just run away without a plan. She couldn't hide forever, but she didn't have a choice. Not anymore. "I have to go," Anna said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "But I'll come back. I have to finish what I started." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, Anna felt a pang of guilt. "Please, Anna, don't do this. Don't make the same mistakes he made." Anna didn't answer. She grabbed the envelope from under the bed, slipping it into her bag before she turned toward the door. As she stepped into the hallway, she glanced back one last time at her mother. Marie stood in the doorway, her face pale and stricken with fear. "Goodbye, Mom," Anna said quietly. And without another word, she turned and left the house, knowing that nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The air was thick with the weight of Anna's decision as she stepped out into the cold night. Her breath was shallow, a cloud of mist escaping her lips as she moved quickly, each step echoing in the silence of the streets. She had no plan, no destination in mind. All she knew was that she couldn't stay, not with the danger closing in around her, not with the truth so close yet so overwhelming. The night felt like it was closing in on her, the darkness thick and unyielding. Every shadow seemed to hide something watching her, waiting for her to make the wrong move. And as the message from Emma replayed in her mind, the gravity of the situation settled deeper into her chest. She couldn't undo what she had started, but she could still control what came next. She had to. Anna's phone buzzed again, pulling her out of her thoughts. She stopped in her tracks and pulled it out of her pocket. It was another message from Emma. "I've set up a safe house. It's not far from you. Get there as fast as you can. They're already looking for you." Without thinking twice, Anna started walking toward the address. Emma had always been there for her, even when they hadn't spoken in years. She was the one person Anna could trust now, the one person who might understand the gravity of what Anna was facing. As the streets passed by in a blur, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that every corner, every turn might be her last. She reached the building Emma had described. It was an old, nondescript apartment building, tucked away on a quiet street far from the bustle of the city. The lights were off in the windows, the building itself seeming abandoned. But Anna knew better. This was the place where Emma had promised her safety. A place that, for all its anonymity, felt like the only sanctuary Anna had left. As she entered the building, the musty air filled her lungs, the scent of old wood and dust clinging to her like a second skin. The stairwell creaked under her weight as she ascended to the second floor, where the door was waiting, slightly ajar. Anna pushed it open, finding Emma sitting at a small table in the middle of the dimly lit room. She was reading a folder, the same kind of folder Anna had been poring over just hours ago. Her eyes flicked up as Anna entered, a flicker of relief passing through them. "You made it," Emma said softly, standing up to meet Anna. "You're safe for now." Anna nodded, her body aching from the tension that had built up during her escape. She felt like she had been running for hours, even though it had only been minutes since she left her mother's house. But now, as she stood in the safe house, the weight of what she had uncovered started to sink in, pulling her down, as though the air around her had become too heavy to breathe. Emma gestured toward the table. "I got more information. I didn't want you to go in blind. You need to know what you're dealing with." Anna walked over and sat down. The folder in front of her seemed almost ordinary now, the kind of thing she might have glanced at without a second thought in the past. But now, as she opened it once more, she saw it for what it truly was, a map to her father's life, a blueprint of all the mistakes he had made, all the dangers he had faced, and all the people who were willing to kill to keep those secrets buried. Emma watched her closely, her face drawn, the exhaustion from their shared journey showing in the lines of her face. Viktor Malikov. She began. He's the one who has all the answers. If we're going to figure out where your father is, he's the one you need to confront. But Anna's fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages, coming to a list of contacts. Some were names she recognized from the photos. Others, not so much. But what caught her attention most was an address at the very bottom of the list. It wasn't just an address. It was a location that tied everything together. The place her father had disappeared to. The place he had gone to hide. The warehouse. Anna murmured. It was the same place she had seen before, the place that had felt like a crossroads between the past and the present. The place that held the key to everything. Emma's expression hardened. It's a trap, Anna. It's where they're keeping him. If you go there, you'll be walking right into their hands. Anna closed the folder, her mind a whirl of conflicting thoughts. She had never wanted to walk into the lion's den, but now it seemed inevitable. The truth was there, in that place, waiting for her to uncover it. She could feel it deep inside her, the need to find her father, to end the nightmare that had plagued her family for so long. I have to go, Anna said quietly, her resolve firming with each passing moment. I can't keep running. I need to know what happened to him, to us. This is the only way. Emma stood in front of her, a pleading look on her face. You don't have to do this. There's another way. We can go to the authorities, we can. No. Anna interrupted, her voice sharp. I can't trust the authorities. I've already spent years waiting for someone to explain what happened, to fix this. I've done it all my life. Now, it's time to take control. Emma swallowed, clearly torn. Then I'm coming with you. You're not going alone. Anna shook her head. You've done enough. You've helped me more than I deserve. I need to do this on my own. Emma opened her mouth to protest, but Anna silenced her with a glance. It's the only way. I have to face this alone. Without another word, Anna stood up and grabbed her coat. She couldn't afford to waste time. The longer she waited, the more dangerous things would become. It was already too late to turn back. The streets outside were quiet again, but Anna felt the weight of the city on her shoulders. She walked with purpose, ignoring the cold and the fear gnawing at her insides. Every step took her closer to the truth. Every step brought her closer to understanding her father's choices, the mistakes that had led to his disappearance, and ultimately, the forces that had been controlling her family's fate. The warehouse was only a few blocks away, and as she approached it, Anna could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She had imagined this moment for so long, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to expect. Would Viktor Malikov be there? Would her father be there? Or would she find herself face to face with the remnants of a life her father had tried to leave behind? The door to the warehouse creaked as she pushed it open, the sound like a death knell in the silence. Inside, it was just as she remembered. Dark, musty, and filled with the remnants of years gone by. But as she ventured deeper into the heart of the warehouse, she saw something that made her blood run cold, a figure standing in the shadows. Viktor Malikov. He stepped forward, his expression unreadable. His eyes locked on Anna's, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. You've come, he said, his voice gravelly. I came for answers, Anna replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. I want to know what happened to my father. Viktor chuckled darkly. You've been asking the wrong questions, Anna. The answers you seek, they're not what you think. Your father wasn't just a man running from his past. He was a man with a purpose. And now, so are you? Anna stepped forward, her resolve hardening. Tell me the truth. Tell me what happened to him. Victor studied her for a long moment, as if weighing whether or not to reveal what she truly needed to know. Then, finally, he spoke. Your father was never meant to be a part of this, but he had a role to play. And now, it's your turn. Anna's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? He smirked. You'll understand soon enough. And with that, everything shifted. The world around Anna twisted, and she realized that the story she had been chasing, the story of her father's disappearance, wasn't just about the past. It was about the future, about her future.
Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.